Last year, I had something unique happen in that it was our COVID Christmas. And so we didn't really exchange gifts all that much, but with my families, like we saw them, but not really. So like we did like gift drop-offs. It was weird. Many of you experienced that same thing. But in one of the sermons that I gave, I talked about my favorite gift ever as a child. I was born way back when in 1987. And which has happened now that some of you are like, way back, and then the kids are like, wow, before 2000? So I'm at a weird spot. So in 1998, the gift for a 10-year-old turning 11-year-old boy was the Game Boy Color. It was the greatest piece of technology that God had ever graced us with. You could play Pokemon and Tetris right there in your hands, and you could play Zelda right there, and it was in color. What a time to be alive for a 10-year-old boy. And I asked my parents for this gift, and I shared this last year as we talked about the greatest gifts we'd ever receive and talked about how Christ is the greatest gift we could receive. Well, my mom and dad live in Toledo area, but they still watch the live stream almost every week. And so when we did our gift exchange, my mom said, hey, I want you to open this one real quick. I opened it up, and there it was. My hoarder father had kept the Game Boy Color, and I was holding it in my hands again. I had no idea they still had it, but of course my dad's like, that's on a shelf in the bottom basement, but you move the old rice cooker and there, right? Some of you have basements like that. And I was holding my Game Boy Color and a couple new AA. She fired up, and along with it, my childhood, right in my hands again. I was living the high life, and I still have these core memories as a child of opening this gift and just being in marvel and then spending hours upon hours just enjoying that gift. Many of you have memories of your childhood just like this, and whatever that gift was that year. Maybe it was when you were young, maybe it was when you were older, maybe it's been something you received. I don't know if any of you have gotten one of those new cars that the commercials seem to suggest everyone gets with the giant bow. I would think that would knock the Game Boy off my list. I have not gotten that yet, but I'm assuming that that would happen. If one of y'all want to try, we'll see. But as you do get older, there is this perspective that starts to set in, isn't it? At least I found this, that the more and more you age a little bit, the less gifts under the tree kind of matter. I mean, sure, we all appreciate a thoughtful gift. It makes us feel nice when someone that we love and care about has thought about us and has given us a gift. But the older you get, the less you tend to care about what's under the tree. And as the old cliche used to tend to care about more, who's around the tree with you. And especially after last year. Last year, we didn't have our holidays. Our family made that choice, and it was a good thing because we got COVID for Christmas last year, and so it was a really great thing we didn't do Christmas, right? And so it was just a hard time for our family. We had a great little nuclear flak Christmas, but not seeing my brothers and sisters and my sisters-in-law and brothers-in-law and my parents and my in-laws, it was a tough time for us. And it made me value even more, not what was under the tree, but who you spend Christmas and the holiday season with, the presence of those family members. It really drove home the point, at least for me, and I think for many of you, that presents matter more than presents. That being with one another matters more than the material gifts we give one another. And while this is true during any time of the year, around the Christmas season, it seems extra punctuated. Why? Because it's at Christmas that we stop and pause and celebrate the arrival of Jesus Christ. The church calls this season Advent, and Advent is literally defined as the arrival of a noble person. Jesus Christ's arrival is the Advent, the coming of the King. We just studied all throughout the book of Mark. Jesus wasn't just some man, but rather God who put on flesh and came down from heaven and dwelt amongst his creation. And in light of his coming, the advent of Christ, it means several things for us, which we're going to study over this next Christmas season in a sermon series that we're calling Simple Christmas. See, the truth is, Christmas can tend to get out of hand for a lot of people, and It's high stress, and it's high emotions, and it's high MasterCard bills. And in reality, if we truly celebrate the coming of Christ, it's much more simple than that. It's much more boiled down than that. The point of this title is to remind us that the most important truths of the holiday season are actually quite simple. And so this week, we look at this idea over valuing presence more than presence, valuing being with one another more than what will come under the tree. Our text today comes out of the Gospel of John. It's John 1. We're going to kind of read the first 5 verses, and then jump down to 15. The text will be on the screen, though. It says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, and through him all things were made. Without him nothing had been made. In him was life, and life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling amongst us. We have seen the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and full of truth." John begins his gospel. It's the most unique of the 4 gospels in the way it's written. And he says, "In the beginning was Jesus." Now, in the Greek, the word he uses is logos, and that translates to word. In the beginning was the Word, and there's a lot that goes into the study of logos and what that means in the ancient world, but it's suffice to say for us this morning that John was talking about Jesus Christ, the Word incarnate, the truth, the logos in flesh. So when John says Word, you can read Jesus appropriately into the text. So you could say, "In the beginning was Jesus." And Jesus was with God. And Jesus was God. He was with God in the beginning. And through Jesus, all things were made. And without Jesus, nothing was made. And then in verse 14, Jesus became flesh and made his dwelling amongst us. We celebrate the presence of God at Christmas time because it's when God graced us, literally, with his presence. Before this, the barrier of heaven and earth has always laid between humans and God. Jesus came to dwell with us. And there's something incredibly powerful in his dwelling with humans. It's why we studied for over a year the Gospel of Mark. Because every time Jesus interacted with people or spoke with people, we could say, this is how God would speak to people. This is how God would interact in this circumstance. This is what God would do in this time and in this place. Because Jesus is God, come from heaven. So we should be aware of how he would act. How would God handle this situation? The old bracelets people used to wear. What would Jesus do? Comes from the idea that Jesus wasn't just some man, but he was God come to earth. So, in this situation, what would Jesus do? And then try and walk that truth out. Beyond that, there's this powerful and mind-changing idea that the God of the universe came down to this earth to mix it up with the rest of us, to eat, to walk, to rest, to talk, to have fully human moments, to dwell with us, to be present with us. Jesus gifted himself to the people of this world, and it genuinely did throw a lot of folks off. Because in some sense, they expected more presence from God, more gifts from God. They expected a new earthly kingdom from God. They expected a king to overthrow Rome. They expected a new military leader that would come like David. And yet, Jesus comes and offers far more presence with people, among one another. He comes to offer a relationship. Dwelling. This can teach us a lot about if we stop and pause and think about it. Because the truth is, our society has gotten away so much from the gift of dwelling, from the gift of presence, from the gift of being one another, and the pandemic hasn't helped that at all. This is legitimate times of being separate from one another. I've shared this anecdote before, but it bears repeating for us thinking about today. Growing up at our house, my parents would routinely have friends just stop by. You'd be sitting on a Tuesday evening or a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon, and the doorbell would just ring. We weren't expecting company. My parents would just get up, and there were guests on our front porch, and they would just come in, and they would do this thing called visiting. Do y'all remember visiting? We haven't visited in like 2 decades, right? But back when I was a kid, visiting was a thing, and you kind of liked it as a kid because you got to listen to what the adults were talking about, but you had to shut up and not say a word because the adults were visiting. So if you tried to talk, it's like, be quiet, we're visiting, right? And these guests would just show up unannounced, and they were my parents' friends or my grandparents or family members, and they would just say, we were just in the neighborhood, so we decided to come by. And the TV would get shut off, and drinks would get offered, cookies would come out of nowhere, and you would visit, and you would just talk, and you would spend hours. And I joke about this, but if I just showed up at y'all's house on an afternoon, you would treat me like the Mormon missionary outside. You'd look out and be like, why is Craig here? What did you do? What did you guys do? Why is he here? And if you open the door slightly, you'd be like, we have COVID. I'm sorry. You better just go away. If I said I'm just here to visit, it's like you need to make a 4-week advanced reservation to visit. I don't just do that. My schedule is busy. I didn't clean. I'm not ready. But that didn't matter growing up. When guests came, you shut off the TV. If the phone would ring, I can still remember my dad saying, let it go. We have guests. We're visiting. We're spending time with one another. And time just, people would spend an hour or 20 minutes or 3 hours, and it was impromptu, but there was something special about that. And I think it's special because it shows us a piece of why Jesus came, to dwell with us. He could have done it in skywriting. He could have just implanted the knowledge in our hearts. Instead, Jesus dwelt with humans. He gave his presence. The God of the universe gave his presence to humans. My point today is that when you and I don't do that, we miss something. We miss something that God gave us, presence, and we've just allowed it to kind of slip away in our society. We don't visit. We rarely are present with people. So this holiday season, and hopefully it extends beyond this holiday season, will offer you opportunities to practice this idea of being present. And today it's going to feel maybe like a different kind of sermon. I want to help you shift your thinking on what it means to be present. And I guarantee there's going to be people in here like, how is this a sermon? Because when we are present, we give people a little piece of Jesus. And you can have a holy moment while being present with people. Some of your favorite memories are when you are with your friends and your family and your brothers and your sisters, and you are just with one another, and you're laughing, and you're playing cards, and you're just fully there. No one says, you know what my favorite moment was? When we all went out to eat, and then we sat on our cell phones and no one talked. That was so special to me. That meant the world to me. No one says that. And I think it's because Christ designed us to be with one another, to have presence with one another. But if we are going to get back to that, we have to shift our thinking because we no longer share presence with one another. And the first way we must shift our thinking is time. How do we shift our thinking and begin to value and give the gift of presence this holiday seasons? The first way we shift our thinking is we must look at time differently. Now, I started with the most convicting area to me because I'm incredibly busy and time is my greatest commodity. I finally reached the point in life where I would almost rather pay you than do the thing you ask me to do, right? When the school sends home the thing, it's like, hey, we've got a fundraiser. It's like, can I write a check and get out of this versus giving you my time? Because time is the one thing I can't get more of. My investments are actually growing, right? They're marketed in such a way, or they're invested in such a way that they're growing. Time is the one commodity I don't get more of. I have less of it today than I had yesterday, and I will never be able to grow it. My time will come to an end. So it's easy to get selfish with our time and life, no matter the time of year, because it is the one commodity you cannot grow. I would argue it is our most important commodity we have, is time. You'll never get it back. Time marches in one direction. And because of this, we can all become selfish with it. We can become selfish with our time. We're no longer willing to be present with people and dwell with others. If you're going to shift your thinking and begin to value the present so that you can be with one another the way the Lord intended, you must view your time as something you steward rather than hoard. You must view your time as something you steward and invest, just like your finances, that you would set aside pockets of time for wise investments because of what they mean, rather than hoarding them all for yourself. You would lay them before the Lord. You would look at your time and say, Lord, I have this pie. Where would you have me give my time? It's why incredibly busy people still find time to serve the church. At least I think they should. Because they say, Lord, even though I'm busy, it's your time. And so how would you want me to steward this time? I'll make time for this reason, this purpose. My point is just that you should make time for people and others in your life, as the Lord would guide you to invest in relationships. And sometimes it will be in service to them. Other times it will just be visiting with them. But it seems almost universal that when we begin to value presence and recognize that being with each other is a gift that can show them Jesus, and that our time is not our own, we will begin to steward that time towards relationships and spending time with one another. You know, I've been in the hospital room while people have died. It's a weird part of their job. I've been at many funerals, I've conducted many funerals, and your job will never show up at the hospital room. It just won't. Like, the pastor of Salina First Church of God, this title I hold and this office I hold, will never visit me in the hospital. My bank account has never visited me when I was down. Your hobbies will not attend your funeral. Your boat will already be on Craigslist. I know that kills you, right? But it won't be in your funeral procession. Your golf clubs will not stand and weep at your death. But people do. And people will be with you. But if you've only put your time into your job and into growing your bank account and into your hobbies and been selfish with that time and given it to no one, then you will find no one at the end. It's a weird thing we do with funerals. They're dead. And yet we go and we honor the dead. And not always, because I've seen funerals for very elderly people that outkick their coverage, and there's just not many of those friendships left. But a lot of time, there is a direct correlation of the attendance at a funeral and the way that people have invested their time, and how they've invested their time into humans. How are you with others? In 2021, with a go society, it will seem challenging to think about your time and invest it in other people's, but it is an asset that the Lord has given you to steward, and it is the only asset you cannot grow through wise stewardship. You put it in and it is gone. So we must think more clearly about our time, and rather than hoarding it for ourselves and what we want to do, how can we spend it with others? The second way we need to shift our thinking, if we've shifted our thinking on time and I'm going to start spending time with more people, I'm going to invest more time in my family or my friends or my coworkers or these relationships that I say I value but I don't put time into them, then we need to shift our thinking with undivided attention. Attention. How we approach the time. How special is it to receive someone's undivided attention? And on the flip side, how annoying is it when you're trying to speak with someone and have an honest conversation and they're constantly looking at their smartwatch, or they're getting out their phone, or, where I'm guilty, watching TV. I'm guilty of this. My wife is like, hey, I'm trying to talk to you. And I'm like, sorry, I wasn't even listening, right? Let me turn this off. Like, you got to touch me and get my attention. There was a football game on. I can do one thing at a time, right? And so how special is it to get your undivided attention and give that to someone? Attention is the secret sauce of presence, with others being able to give a real gift when you give them your undivided attention. Again, I think back of visiting in my family's living room that just happened, and this was the blessed time before cell phones, but the TV was shut off. My parents never had someone over and had the TV on. No, the TV was shut off. They simply were there. You didn't pick up the phone because you were giving that person your attention. You were visiting, and to not give them your attention would be rude. When we read the stories of Jesus and how he was fully present with people and in the moment with people, giving them their full attention, this is the God of the universe giving individuals his full attention. It certainly shows us a better way when we live in an attention-divided world. Cell phones have become a little demon that disrupts people's presence, and it can completely destroy an atmosphere. If we put away the cell phones, and there are times where we're simply paying attention mentally, we can refocus on who's in front of us and truly listen and give them the gift of presence. Parents, this can be especially challenging with your kids, because if you ever tried to listen to your kids for more than 2 minutes, it's exhausting, right? And now you grandparents are like, how dare you say that? You were the same way when you were parents. It's the weird transition. Grandparents somehow are like, yeah, I want to hear your 45-minute story that goes nowhere. And the parents are like, please get to the point. I can't do it, right? So we struggle to give our kids attention, but kids have this thing. They know when you're not paying attention, and they will call you out on it when you're not paying attention. They'll just say your name over and over and over until you give it to them. And the reason they do that is because they know you are not giving them the thing they desire, your time and your attention. We can do so much better with this. If we're going to value presence this holiday season, because Jesus Christ shows us the value of presence, then we will shift our way we view our time. We'll invest it in those who matter, and then we will silence the cell phones. We'll focus. We'll turn off the TV. We'll give people the attention we long for. What a gift it is to be with another person and have them genuinely share their heart with no interruptions, to be unbothered by schedules and simply enjoying the moment. I truly believe this is offering a piece of Jesus Christ to them, whether they realize it or not, when we can just give them our attention. So I challenge you this holiday season. What is the thing that distracts you? Is it your cell phone? Is it the TV? Try and take times and put it away. If you're going to go to a Christmas party or a holiday party, challenge yourself to stay off your phone, to just be with the people in the room, if only for the fact that you don't know if this is your last one or not. All of us don't know if tomorrow is promised. And so if you knew this was the last Christmas I'm going to have with cousin so-and-so or aunt so-and-so or mom or dad or them, my guess is you would value your time in such a way, and you would value your presence in such a way to say, I just want to be with them. I want to hear from them. I want to be with them. The final way I think we need to shift our thinking this holiday season to value presence is with our authenticity. People desire to spend time with you, not a manufactured version of you. People desire to get to know you, not a version of you that you think people would like the most. And here's the truth, church. Sorry to burst this bubble. No one is perfect. Despite the version of ourselves that we put out there on social media, despite the version we like people to see of ourselves, despite X, Y, or Z, no one is perfect. We all have faults, we all have foibles, and yet all of us have the desire to try and hide it from this world. And sure, there are times where it is appropriate to clean up a little bit. There are times where it's appropriate to act more professionally than personally. But when we're practicing the presence with family or loved ones or dear friends, being your authentic self is a gift for them. To put down the shield, to stop pretending, and when they ask how you really are, respond with authenticity and watch the atmosphere it creates, and it welcomes them into this same space. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's been a hard last 2 years for everyone. I always chuckle when the news comes up and they say, this has been the hardest season for truck drivers. This has been the hardest season for nurses, teachers quitting. It's been the hardest season. And it's like, do we not realize that it's been hard for everyone? Like, there's no one that's been like, oh no, it's been pretty good actually. I've crushed it the past 2 years. My job hasn't changed at all. I haven't been annoyed with people. I haven't gotten in a fight with my cousin about a vaccine. Like, that hasn't been a thing at all in my life. It's been hard for everyone. Everyone's job. More pastors quit in 2020 and 2021 than any period ever. And yet I go to these times with all my colleagues and they're like, it's just so much harder for pastors. I'm like, more teachers quit in 20 and 2021 than any time ever before. And more nurses quit in 2020 and 2021 than, and could it just be that living through a pandemic is incredibly difficult, yet when someone that we love comes and asks us, how you doing? What is our natural response to say? Great. Couldn't be better. Too blessed to stress. Right? We just say these things instinctively rather than being authentic because we've lived in a world that says, just keep it to yourself. And again, there are times for that, but when you live in authentic relationship with one another and you can share with those moments, something blessed can happen there. They say, how are you doing? And it's like, man, it's been tough, actually. This is what I've been going through. This is what I've been struggling with. And it's in that moment that nothing will kill the moment more than they're sharing and the person is doing this on their smartwatch. Or their phone goes off and you go, hey, okay, sorry about all that. And they take a call. Being in that moment and then vulnerability, they can go hand in hand, but it's this kind of house of cards that can crumble down if we're not careful. To sit with people in their most important times and most vulnerable times is one of the most special parts of my ministry. Here's the thing. That couch in my office has seen more tears than you can ever imagine, and here's what happens every time. Someone comes in, I have tissues right on the thing because a lot of people cry in my office, that's natural, and then they start crying and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. For being vulnerable? For being honest? Because something in us has told us I can't be this way in front of another person. And you know what I don't do? I sit in my little chair and I just sit there. I say, that's okay. I don't get on my phone. I don't go, whoa, why don't you clean up for a second and then we'll... But yet we all have this thing inside of us that says, I can't be vulnerable. I can't show them the real me. In those moments in my office when I'm pastoring people through some of their greatest hurts or challenges or questions are holy moments. Not because I have all the answers. I don't. Trust me. But because I will sit there and listen with them and be with them and hear them and give them a human interaction that some people simply long for so that they know they're not alone. And then if I'm on my game and I'm doing my job right, I point them to the Father who is always with them so they know that they're never alone. But we have to be authentic, because if you come into my office and I say, what's going on? And you're like, nothing. Or your friend goes out to coffee with you and you say, how's it going? And you say, great. And you never let anyone in. You will never find the gift of presence. Jesus Christ wept when his friend Lazarus died. If the God of the universe could show himself that emotion, he flipped over tables when he had a righteous anger. If the God of the universe could show himself to his disciples, why are you and I so terrified of showing ourselves to others? Why do you and I live so terrified of living authentically? Do you see how rare that is in today's world, to not live a manicured life? Do you see why we should be longing this holiday season to give and receive presents? If you could guarantee that under the tree was time with loved ones who are being fully present in the moment and who are being honest and authentic with you, or something shiny, I think most in here would say, I'll take the time with loved ones. I'll take them being honest. I'll take being able to be honest myself. I'll take the laughter that's followed by tears, that's met with more laughter. I'll take the sharing of the burdens. I'll take it because I love them. Do you see if you're preoccupied about what will be under the tree, you will miss out on what could be a special moment? I'll just be honest, one of my favorite things about Christmas is Becca does all the shopping, and so I'm just as excited for the kids. I'm like, what did you get? This is awesome. And maybe that's not great, I should probably help a little more, but I have a joy of with them. I'm like, this is amazing. This is super special, because I wasn't stressed at all about it. I'm not sure that really helps your situation. But the truth is, I'm excited to be with them. I'm just excited to live in their joy for a moment. So if you step back and just say, we'll figure the gifts out and we'll order and we'll do whatever needs to be done, but I just want to be with you. There's something special in that. This holiday season, you have an opportunity to stop and pause and pursue presence over gifts. In this way, you can ensure that the Spirit of Christ is a part of your gathering because he put on flesh, came down from heaven, and dwelt amongst us. And it's what we celebrate this holiday season. And one final note as we close today. Remember that the gift of presence isn't just for your immediate family. But if you have a neighbor, a coworker, a friend, a church family member, and you know that they don't have anywhere to go for whatever reason, family's out of town, family's gone, make sure that they're a part of your family. Make sure that you invite them along. Make them a part of your family. You have an opportunity to be Christ to them this holiday season, and I can assure you that it would mean the world to them. They may not be able to come, but simply the honest invite of, would you come over to our family's house and spend the holidays with us? Oh, no, I couldn't do that. Why not? Well, I'm not a part of it. Yeah, we're a freak show, but you're welcome to come and be a part of it. You can be a part of our family, and our grandkids are crazy or our kids are crazy, and it's going to be nuts, but there'll be food, and there'll be laughter, and there'll be community, and you can come and be a part of that. It'll mean more than you could ever know. No one should have to be alone for the holidays if we can avoid it. And as the body of Christ, we represent that to this world. To say, Christ came and dwelt with us, will you come and dwell with us as well? We don't often think about this idea, but I'm captivated about this idea of presence because, this sermon came to me just a few weeks ago. We were having our small group. We were standing in the Muller's kitchen. There was 30 kids in the basement, and it was crazy down there. And there was a bunch of adults standing around their island, and no one was on their phone. Everyone was just talking and laughing and having fun. And we got in the car, and my kids who were in the basement talking, laughing, having fun were like, this was the greatest day ever. And I was thinking in my own heart, this was a wonderful day. Had nothing to do with what we came away with, but everything to do with who we spent time with. And so again, I understand that this idea of we're talked about how to be a person better in presence. How is that really church? I truly think if we get away from this church, we are missing what Jesus came for. And if we capture this idea of presence and being with one another because God dwelt with us, we will have something special to give and receive this holiday season. Let's pray as the worship team comes forward. God, we give you praise and glory for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, to dwell amongst us. He was with you from the beginning. And what a day it must have been to send Christ from heaven. And what a day it was to receive him back. God, help us this holiday season to focus on those around us, the time and joy we can have with them, to receive and give presents, and lower in us the care of the material things of this world, for we know as Christians, as followers of Jesus, that it is unconsequential, the gifts that are under the tree. The things we'll remember is who we spent the time with. So help us to invest it well, to be present with those we love, and to be authentic with those we care about. Help us as we continue to worship you through song. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.